Hello and welcome to the next to last day of Vedutov. Because it's the next to last day of February. I'm Tom, president and dictator for life of 515comics.com. So sometime last week, after I posted one of my earlier vlogs for this series, my good buddy Austin Allen Hamblin of Hamblin Comics fame suggested that I make a vlog about what comics you should be reading. I'm not really one for recommendations, and I don't actually read a lot of print comics, and by a lot of print comics I mean I don't read any. For several years I've had a seldom running segment on this channel of the Life Project to read more print comics. That's pretty much fallen off as of late. I would like to pick it back up, but I figured I would still do a comic recommendation show, but instead of talking about comics that are in print, or really even comics that I think you should read, I'm just going to tell you what comics I read. Even though I don't read print comics, I do read a lot of comics. Mostly I read a lot of webcomics. There are a lot of webcomics that I read sporadically, I'll let them build up for a few weeks or even a few months or maybe even a year or two. Sometimes I'll kind of forget that I really like a comic and then find it again and be like, oh yeah, this one's great! But there are some comics that I cannot wait to read, and I read pretty much every week as they come out. Every day that they release. Some iPads have this feature on, I just use Safari as a browser. They have a feature of frequently visited sites, and most of mine are webcomics. So I thought I would share what are the webcomics that I read on a regular basis. And again, this is by no means a complete list of the webcomics that I read or would recommend to people, but I just thought, this is kind of a fun, personal thing. And I do feel like it's a little personal. There were some of these that I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell people that I read that comic. But I figure a lot of people who watch this either are webcomic people and at least know what I'm talking about, or read these comics themselves, or have never heard of it, and so won't know to judge me for it. So whatever. It's kind of a personal thing. I don't know. There's just something about it that I had that moment of hesitation of I don't know. Anyway, so I guess I'll just go back to front, because that it sort of organizes them by how frequently I check them. So the last comic that's on here is called Paranatural. And I'll go ahead and put links in the description for all these. Paranatural, really amazingly funny and interesting creative comic about young kids who can see ghosts and use ghost powers, and that's really, I'm gonna be completely underselling all of these because I don't want this video to be a half hour long. It's really great. The art is amazing, the storytelling is awesome. The humor is, it's on point. It is really, really good. But it's one continuous story. It's been going for several years now, and it updates 2 times a week. It's a great read, great read. Next one on there, and I'm a little embarrassed that this is so far down on my list of frequently visited, is Gunner Craig Court. This is a comic that I recommend to people all the time when people are like, what kind of webcomics do you read? Gunner Craig Court is usually the first one that I mention. This comic has been online for a very long time. It's in print. You can find it in bookstores very commonly. It's great. It's amazing science fiction fantasy. Whoa. It's really good. It's just a great story, and it's been building and building and building, and even the earliest stuff that doesn't seem like it should have anything to do with the current storyline, there's little things that it picks out of there. This is a big inspiration for me as far as actually planting seeds to sow later in a story. Gunner Craig Court does it right. The next one on here is Namesake. It's a story about people who have the name of a character from a story get transported to a world of that character's name. I don't know if that made any sense. Currently, there's been a story arc following a guy named Jack, who gets transported to the story of Jack and the Beanstalk and has to kill giants, and it's very interesting. Again, there's a lot of subplots and intrigue and interesting literary stuff twisted in there. Very cool. Next one on there is Between Failures. I like this comic especially because I work at a bookstore, and the comic, it centers around people who work at a bookstore. So there's a lot of great retail humor in it, but more than that, it's just a lot of like relationship humor. And it's not always humor either. Like, most of them have a gag at the end, but a lot of it is just like relationship building and characters interacting with each other. Very well written, updates 3 times a week, pretty good read. Next one is Womp! Womp, the Butts comic. Womp is about a sad cartoonist named Ronnie, who is a sad cartoonist who farts a lot. I don't know, it's great. It's random humor, it's not a continuous storyline. There's some little arcs, but it's mostly just like a gag a day. It's 3 times a week, and it's great. I love it. Sometimes I will just go there and hit random and just read from wherever I land. It just brings me joy. This man's sadness brings me much joy. Next one on the list is El Gunish Shive, which is a really weird title, yeah, it updates 3 times a week. It's about so many different things, but what it's been about the most consistently is magic existing in the real world and a small group of kids slowly finding that out. I started reading it, and there is a lot of it. It updates 3 times a week. It's been online for ages. It's a pretty intimidating archive to get through, but I actually really enjoyed reading through it a couple years ago, and I still keep up on it now. So there you go. Mare Internum, although I found out recently that it's pronounced Mare Internum because I went and watched her Patreon video. Updates sporadically. Really amazing science fiction story about researchers getting trapped on Mars. You should definitely check it out. It is not what you're thinking. It is not like The Martian, like that Andy Weir book and the movie with what's his name. It is an amazing story, and the art is top-notch. Really, really good stuff. Amazing. Should win awards. Probably has. And then my most frequently visited webcomic that I read pretty much every day is Questionable Content. I started reading this like 10, 11, 12 years ago. I just came across it randomly on a Google search and started reading. There's over 3,000 pages of this comic. It updates daily during the week, so it's 5 times a week. It's just like, mostly it's gag a day, it does follow story arcs, it's relationship humor, it's slice of life. I don't know, it's very comforting to me. I think partly because I've just been reading it for so long. Yeah, I'm pretty invested in it, and I really like it. So anyway, so those are the comics that I read on a weekly basis. Again, this does not even scratch the surface of the comics that I read regularly, but these are the ones that I'm actually like actively seeking out and going to their website and looking at pages as they come out. If you guys want to check any of those out, let me know what you think of them. And also, if you read webcomics, what are some webcomics that you read on a regular basis, that you read like when they come out? I'm hoping one of them might be a cool sci-fi adventure story. It takes place on a planet called Nextus. I don't know. Maybe you read that one. That would be cool. You should read that one. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. You guys keep your stick on the ice, because tomorrow, it's the last day of Vidutov. I'll see you then.